So welcome guys, there's a few on here that I do not know, so I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Amanda Villarreal and I have been in the health and wellness industry for over 20 years, a personal trainer, nutritionist, group fitness instructor, and have also worked with using Shaklee products and designing supplement programs for people for over 20 years. And our goal is to each week provide you a different topic that can play a part into giving you some natural alternatives. So tonight our topic is protein, and we really want to make sure that as we're kind of getting into our topic here that we focus on understanding a little bit first about what protein is. So that's what we're going to begin with. So protein is something that is a necessary nutrient for everyone. So whenever we hear of all of these diets that incorporate, no protein or low protein, we want to be very careful of that, because protein is like trying to build a house without the bricks. You need to make sure that you have that foundation in order to help build a house. So when we look at the word Greek, it's actually a Greek word. That means the first one or the most important one. So there's a lot that, protein does for our bodies. And it's not just for, I think a lot of people think protein is just for bodybuilders. It's just for athletes. And what we share tonight, hopefully you guys will all realize that no, protein is needed for every single one of us. And if you look at what protein does, it actually, next to water, it's the most important nutrient in our body. And protein molecules are links of amino acids put together. And like I was saying, it's the basic building block. And if you think of all the different processes in our body that protein is used for, we have bones, muscles, organs, your blood, arteries, hormones, tissues, antibodies, enzymes, skin, hair, nails. I mean, it plays a part in so many different systems in our body. And most people, when they hear protein, they tend to think of what? Muscle. That's usually the response when you're talking about why people are eating more protein. So we really want to help you to understand how it is having a complete protein source on a daily basis is essential for your body to facilitate growth, to helping with repair, fueling, and also helping with many different functions and processes that go on in our body. So as we look at the different types of protein, we have our two types of protein. We have our essential and we have our non-essential, which we're going to talk about that here a little bit in a second. But as you're looking at the screen here, I think the benefits of protein, like I said, we mainly hear just a couple of these, but protein is just one of those things that I, again, believe that it's not talked about enough on how to get complete proteins. And I hope that some of this information will really help you learn some of those things here tonight. But if you see here, 8 benefits of protein-rich foods. So look at all the areas this is affecting beyond just what we were saying of muscle, right? So we need to make sure that we are on a daily basis getting good quality protein in. So we were talking a little bit ago about, yes, a lot of people think, oh, I just need protein if I'm focused on building muscle. And again, not true. If you know of anyone that is really focused on having high protein diets for a very long period of time, it's actually very dangerous, and it can cause a lot of health risks and dangers to the body, especially your kidneys and your bones. So we want to make sure that, they say on average, if you're looking at, I would say, someone that's on maybe a 2,000 calorie diet, over 150 grams a day is going to be considered very high risk. So we don't want to have too much protein, and we want to have a balanced amount of protein. And I know a lot of the trends right now are focused on higher ratios of protein. But if we look at getting back to more of the basics, I would say 10% to 35% in that range is roughly a percentage if you want to figure out and calculate how much protein you should be having on a daily basis. Now, again, people tend to think more the better, and that's why we want to highlight that is not the case. We want to make sure that it's in ratio with the other types of food we are eating, and we also want to make sure that that protein is breaking down. And this is where this complete versus incomplete becomes very important. So complete proteins are going to be your animal proteins. That's why everybody thinks to eat protein, we need to have as much, chicken, beef, all of the meats that we can, along with dairy and eggs, are high animal protein sources. But the incomplete proteins are going to be, a lot of the vegetarians will struggle with getting enough complete proteins because they tend to eat more of the things that are alternatives that are missing a component of that amino acid. And when it's missing one of them, it alters how it's broken down into your body. So I thought it would be helpful to just kind of really quickly, again, this is only 20 minutes. I try to make sure we stick to being on time, but just to kind of walk through some of the different types of protein sources and looking at vegan versus using a meat-based protein. Now, when we look at the different types of amino acids, there's been 25 of them that have been identified. We have nine essential and 16 non-essential. So the essential ones are the ones that the body cannot make. And that's why it's crucial we're getting it through our diet. And if you look at the non-essential ones, those are the ones that the body can make. And making sure that we get all of them together is what's really going to be key, and making sure that you're not missing any of those, because if you are, like I said, your body is going to suffer in some way. And actually fat storage is a big result of oftentimes not having complete protein sources. So let's look at, just like I said, some options here and helping you to kind of see some variations and varieties of protein that not everybody's aware of. So pea protein, that's a very popular one right now. And there are several different versions of pea protein, but one of the things you want to make sure is always that it's non-GMO, and we're going to say that for all of our protein sources. And it's been noted that there are a couple studies that it can be helpful to be used for after a workout. So the cons of pea protein, though, it's all in how it's processed. So if it's not using what it needs to make it a complete protein source, it can have things in there that are considered to be more harmful than good. And also, if you're reading on the screen there, that some can be contaminated with Roundup. And pea protein a lot of times has a very, very bitter taste to it. So we want to note that, you know, for taste preferences, a lot of people are not big fans of pea protein. Now, soy protein. This is going to be the most complete vegetable protein source. And personally, I'm a huge fan of soy. And again, there's a lot of controversial topics around soy. And I could probably spend the entire time talking about this alone, but there's so many different soy products out there. And learning which ones are safe and which ones are not, that is very important to kind of understand how the soy is, once again, processed. If it's processed correctly, it does have all those essential amino acids in there, and that's why it can be a great plant source alternative. But the cons of it are that it's becoming very hard to find in a clean source. So we do want to make sure, especially with soy, that it is organic. So that is a key thing to note, because generally if it's organic, that means it's non-GMO. So again, just a very important thing to highlight there is the differences between these options. So soy being one of the most complete sources. Now there's the isolated soy that most people are familiar with. And remember, you can get soy in lots of options, right? You can get it in protein powders. We can get it through our food. But most of us having a protein powder option today is a great solution for being busy and for having options. And we're going to kind of talk through a few of those here. But I know whey is also a really hot topic right now. And if you look at whey, some of the great things about it is that it's extracted from cheese production, actually. It's kind of interesting that the whey is the milk that when they process it, about 10 pounds of the cheese, when they're processing the milk, 10 pounds of it is cheese, and 90 pounds of the residual liquid that comes from that processing of the cheese is actually what is the whey. So that whey protein, the drawbacks of it, unless it's been somehow created with that missing amino acid, it's not a complete protein source. And that's a big one. Also, the fat content, some people are very sensitive to dairy. So that's where whey can also be not necessarily the best of anybody that has lactose intolerant type issues. So I think there's more concerns with whey proteins than many of the other ones out there today. Not to say that there's not clean options though. So, but again, a lot of it is learning where, again, the protein sources are coming from. And we also want to know, you know, when we're looking at food sources, that there are a lot of great options. But the problem we see today is the North American type diet, that it is very high in meat. If you look at the red meat, the chicken, the dairy, you know, you would think that we're getting plenty of protein in our diets, right? I mean, that's just most people you talk to, meat is a main source. But the problem is it takes a long time to process. And unfortunately, Americans especially, we're noticing that our digestive system is low functioning. And if we can't break that down, we're not going to be absorbing all those amino acids from the meat sources. So when we also look at a lot of the meat sources are so processed. Think of hot dogs, hamburgers, your cold cut sandwiches, bacon, fried chicken. All of those types of processed foods have strayed away from the Mother Nature concept and keeping it a balanced source of protein. So we want to note that's why when we look at these options for protein powders and substitutes that we can add into our diet, it might just be because we cannot get it from our food as much anymore. Even if you look at the amount of other things that are added into meats, again, you look at your high fat content, the antibiotics, the hormones, additives, preservatives, nitrates are a big one in like your cold cuts, flavors, stabilizers, all of them can definitely be, again, creating a much more toxic environment for our intestinal tract. So, I think that's a very common thing today to say that people have digestive issues. And it's not unheard of that, meat can be one of the factors that's slowing down that process. And I know most people go to, if you're having digestive issues, they go to eliminating dairy or gluten first. But I also encourage you to learn more about how meat is broken down and processed into your body. So when we look at quality sources, there's a lot of different options of proteins out there. And I just want to kind of quickly cover here a few sources that we have found very helpful. Our family uses these. I've used it with clients for over 20 years. And I feel like these research and the science behind it validates the results. And that should be our goal when we're looking at adding anything into our body. We want to make sure it's pure and it's clean. So I'm just going to talk through here a couple of the different protein sources. So I put a couple pictures up there just to kind of give you some ideas of protein powders. And one of the very first ones I'm going to start with here is soy protein. So this is one that our family actually uses every day, and our kids even use this. So the soy protein option, and again, we were kind of talking about and highlighting, why is soy protein a great option? Again, the complete protein concept. But what is different about this is the fact that this is a meal replacement. So it's going to be taking the place of a meal, and it gives you simplicity, which again, I feel like today that's a big issue. That's why we go to fast food, because we need options. But if you look at the balance that's in here, it's pretty impressive that they added the things that they needed to, like omegas. This has evolved over the last 100 years to make what we have today in this protein. So we know that it's the most scientifically advanced protein powder out there is this Life Shake. And it's very difficult also to find for people that have food sensitivities. This is gluten-free and dairy-free. And that is, again, a huge issue with a lot of our dietary concerns today. So if you look at the balance of this though, 20 grams of protein in a serving, 3 grams of fat, 14 grams of carbs. So it's still a very well balanced, like we were talking about that ratio of getting still some fat, some carbs. We want all of it to help this make a rounded, well-balanced meal for us. So this is going to be our soy protein option. And if you see there's also a plant version of this. So the plant, if you guys are reading here, I typed this out and I know it's a lot to read here, but there's other options of protein. I'm just picking 4 of them to just kind of mention here really quickly. But the plant protein is very unique, actually. If you know much about where this plant protein came from, for you guys that are familiar with Shaklee, it actually comes from Sacha Inchi, which is found in the Amazon, and it's a very unique protein option. But the way that they put it together with the pea protein and potato protein actually is a very similar, it has a similar response and breakdown as the soy protein does. And that's why it took them a very long time. It's one of the newest protein options for Shaklee is this plant one. But it still has all the same concepts of the leucine for muscle mass, the fiber that we need to helping with, again, digestive health. And looking at the taste of it, that really helps to break down that pea protein is the Sacha Inchi, which is key in that plant protein. And we also have, just to kind of mention, a few weeks ago, our topic was on recovery and learning a little bit more about options for post-recovery. This is where timing of protein can also be very key, especially if you guys work out, which I hope you all do, is trying to make sure that you're optimizing your recovery and using a protein source like this is going to be, there's a picture of the Build and there's a Build Plus option. And this is going to be a source that does not have fat in it. This one has carbs, but the other whey one does not. So we talked about whey protein a little bit earlier, remember, and how I was saying that it's not always a complete balanced protein source. But this one is going to be having the full essential array of those amino acids. It's very fast absorbing and easy to digest. So that whey one is very clean. It's grass-fed, and I found that it really helps with people that need something that's quickly absorbing, and it actually has 50% more leucine than the traditional whey proteins that are sold in the market. And when you look at a lot of the protein options that are available today, we talked about food sources and the dangers of them, but we could talk for hours on the dangers of protein powders purchased from health food stores, over-the-counter stores, even places like Costco. You know, the lack of regulations, the fact that there's herbs added to them. They have a lot of unknowns that do not have to be listed on the label. So we really want to make sure that it's clean. And this grass-fed whey protein is actually very minimal in the ingredients that's listed on there. And again, I love the fact that it still has 20 grams of protein, but ideally, this is a recovery option. So we would use this ideally after workout or after surgery, after trauma, to help with repairing muscles much faster. But all of the Shaklee protein powders, as far as the meal replacements and workout options, have the leucine in there, which is a key component to helping us to make sure we continue to keep our muscle, but at the same time lose fat. And as we're trying to, stay healthier and focus on long-term health, that is a really key component to focusing on how our bodies can function better long-term, is keeping that balance of the right protein in our body. So, and the last one shown on there is the Energizing Soy Protein. And this has been around for 60 plus years from Shaklee, and it was one of the original formulations. It is straight soy protein. This would be great to be used as a snack. A good one to use to keep blood sugar levels stable, maybe for some people that want a quick option, but they don't necessarily want to have this as a meal. This is the great, again, another option for you. And we use it also to cook with. We put it in different, I'll show you a few recipes here in a second, but it still has a really good quality, high source of soy protein. So for people that, again, are looking for that recovery and trying to, make sure that they're working on building, this gives you options. And that's kind of what we just wanted to showcase here. And I also wanted to just give you guys some recipes. Feel free to screenshot these of different ways you can use protein powders, because I know some people get in the mindset, oh, I can only use them in shakes and I don't like shakes. But there's a lot you can also do with protein powders. And, I think most people know how to make different meat recipes. So I wanted to just give you guys, again, some ideas of using life shakes. So this is one for pudding, a chia pudding, which our kids really like this one. And again, it's very, very simple. Does not take a lot of time, but you'll note that it's actually a very high protein type snack. So, and you can make this with different milks to make it fit whatever your needs are for dietary concerns. We know about smoothies, right? But I also want you to think about how you can make these smoothies, an option of variety and getting different things in. For you guys that are local, we do smoothie workshops probably once a month to give you lots of different nutrients in there. And that's a habit that people tend to do, is make the same things over and over again. So again, just another fun option for mixing up some variety in your smoothies. And here's just a couple more that I don't think, maybe people have tried, are making pancakes with protein. And this is a really good recipe. These are brownie protein pancakes. And, you can kind of mix up how you want chocolate chips in them. Great. If you don't, you can top them with fruit. But you'll see that there's half a cup of protein powder in there. That's a lot of protein. And you add chickpea flour in there. That's also more protein. So this is a really good option. It's well balanced with adding the flax seeds in there to give you an offset of the right fats. And again, keeping it a complete balanced, along with these energy bites, which I know there's several of you out here that love protein balls, and we do a lot of these in different workshops, and we try to give you different recipes. So this one is using cinnamon, and I made them the other day and they were a hit. So just to give you some other ideas of how you could mix in protein into your diet. So, all right, guys, I'm going to open it up for questions here a second. So if you're thinking of something you want to ask, feel free to. And I just want to make sure that I highlight next week, we're going to be talking about sleep. So if you have some sleep concerns, you want to learn more about how you can improve your sleep, people that this could help, please invite them. That will be our topic for next Monday night at 8:30. So, all right, guys, any questions or anything maybe I could add on, or if you didn't want to say if that was helpful, I would love to hear from you. So feel free to unmute yourself. You guys are all quiet. I'm hoping that means nobody's sleeping and you all found it to be very helpful. All right, I am going to go ahead and stop our recording here.